Welcome to Hooked on T-Bucket Hot Rod. We're all about T-Buckets, their history, the people who built and are building them, tips and tricks on their construction, and the fun of owning, driving, and being a member of the active, growing, and global T-Bucket Hot Rod community. I'm your host, John Moorhead, and I'm the guy behind the tbucketplans.com website. Hey, thanks again to the Duluth Fractals for permission to use their My T-Bucket as our theme song. If you like it, it's downloadable for just 99 cents at cdbaby.com. And we'll include a link to it in the show notes for this episode at tbucketpodcast.com. The response to our podcast has been just amazing, and I'm so happy to hear from all the listeners who've reached out to say how much they enjoyed our TV Tommy Ivo interview recently. You'll be glad to know that we have lots more coming from other T-Bucket pioneers and legends, but we also want to stay current with the T-Bucket scene, and that leads us to this episode's interview. It's about a really cool old-style T-Bucket that was fashioned in metal by hand only recently. I discovered this T-Roadster on Christmas Day when I read a post on the National T-Bucket Alliance Facebook group by a fellow named Doug Siemen. By the way, if you're not already, I highly recommend you join that group if you're a T-Bucket fan. I'll include a link in the show notes at tbucketpodcast.com as well. Here's what Doug Siemen said in his Christmas greeting. Merry Christmas to all the Bucketeers. If you didn't get what you wanted under the tree, you can take the $20 Grandma gave you and go to helpinghannahsheart.org to buy a poster that comes with a chance to win this little hot rod. Even if you don't win the car, you get to help families of children with heart defects. Well, and accompanying that was a photo of a cream-scalloped red 23T Roadster that absolutely could have come out of a time warp from, say, 1948 to 1955. I mean, you really don't see many turtle deck Ts sitting unchanneled on deuce rails. It's a totally distinctive look. Of course, we'll have photos in the show notes at tbucketpodcast.com. So I immediately went to the helpinghannahsheart.org website to buy the cool graphics poster Doug mentioned, which in itself is worth the $20. But that's not all, because your $20 also qualifies as a charitable donation to a very worthy cause, and you get a chance to win the awesome Roadster that Doug Siemen built. That's what I'd call a win-win-win. And it's going to be given away in just a week from now at Vintage Torque Fest, and that runs May 3rd and 4th in Dubuque, Iowa. If you're in the Midwest, it's well worth attending, especially if you're a traditional hot rod fan. But no matter where you are, if you go to the website and make your donation, you'll get the poster and a chance to win this nifty traditional T-Roadster in the drawing on Saturday, May 4th. Anyway, as soon as I saw what he had built, I had to check out Doug Siemen further and learned that he lived in Iowa, and I figured that as soon as winter road conditions evaporated, I'd make the trip to interview him. By the way, it's snowing here in Chicago today on April 27th. But I got lucky and was able to hook up with Doug at the Detroit Autorama, where the Roadster was on display. So kick back and listen as we talk to Doug Siemen about how this traditional T-Roadster that you could win came about. But I'm here at the Detroit Autorama with Doug Siemen, who has built a very novel, I'm going to say unique, T-Bucket Roadster, which I think he would refer to as a T-Roadster. But the story behind this Roadster is more important than Roadster itself. And Doug, can you kind of tell about how this came about?
Well, 10 years ago, I started helping out with a little car show that nobody had really heard of in Iowa called Vintage Torque Fest. And it's a fundraiser for Helping Hannah's Heart Foundation, which helps raise funds for families with children with congenital heart defects. It what this foundation does is they kind of help support these families in their time, cover things that insurance doesn't, like gas money to and from a hospital, the time off if you have a one-man shop and you're not working, it has to cover that. And after 9 or so years, I thought to myself, I need to be able to give more to this. So I started off with the idea, they have a raffle car every year. I said, let's build a hot rod. And so the original idea was a fiberglass tea bucket. Okay. Well, that didn't go far because fiberglass makes me itch, and we built a steel car from flat steel.
And your background is in woodworking. Right?
I did 24 years of woodworking, and I do physical therapy for a living now.
Okay.
So completely removed from anything you would think that would put this out in 9.5 months.
Right. And in the show notes, we'll have some photographs of what was the concept car and the finished car as well, and also details on the raffle, so that someone can make a donation to a very worthy cause, and perhaps they might get lucky and win the T Roadster, which would be a huge benefit.
And it's a fun car to drive. I've got 3,000 miles on this in the last 4 months.
Oh, wow.
We've driven it in rain. We've driven it in cold. It likes to go down the road.
All right, so you started out, you did a concept with a fiberglass bucket.
Yes, sir.
And tell a little bit about what that concept was. It was a little different from your normal T-bucket Roadster.
Well, I had a set of 32 Ford frame rails in my shop, and I thought to myself, well, we'll throw that bucket on there on some jack stands and throw some parts and see what it looks like. So we just kind of went from there. I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted to look like, and we just started cutting and pasting until we got to where we needed to be. I wanted a 40s track Roadster look that kind of got updated in the 50s, and the funny part of this weekend is I've had lots of people ask what the history on it is.
Well, it looks like a Roadster that has been, kind of resurrected from a very early build.
Mission accomplished.
The 32 rails and not being channeled, and the dash.
35-36 Ford dash, missing quite a few inches out of it, with the 51 Ford gauge cluster.
But let's go back on this story, because there's so many fascinating elements to it that the fiberglass body just, didn't do it for you. So you did what very few people would do. You decided to roll up your sleeves and build your own?
I did. Started with flat steel. I even had to make my own bead roller dies, because my cheap bead roller I couldn't buy the right dies for to roll all the beads in the deck lid, around the top, and for the doors.
I'm looking at it from the back and seeing the turtle deck and the back of the body, and you're mentioning the bead roll, and it looks just like the reveals on what would be the stock body. It's incredible.
Fake it till you make it.
So one reason was what? It probably wasn't easy to find a steel body, and
well, they're out there, but I live in Iowa. Okay. Everything falls apart in Iowa, because something that's 100 years old that sat in the barnyard, you're going to not have much left of it.
Yeah. They probably didn't sell too many Roadster runabouts in Iowa in the
That's very possible as well.
So you've built this awesome looking Roadster, and I'll have plenty of pictures so people can see it. But tell us a little more about the donations that people can make and the raffle.
Well, we're selling posters for $20 a piece, or there's multiples. And you can go to vintagetorquefest.com, or helpinghannasheart.org also explains the charity and also has a link to go purchase posters, which is your raffle ticket.
Right.
And if I'm out and about, I usually have raffle tickets. So if you see this little T, I probably have some with me. then you can always show up to Vintage Torque Fest in Dubuque, Iowa, May 3rd and 4th, and get in the drawing as well as see the car in person. I also started another thing online, and it's just kind of hooked to my Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm driving this car from West Liberty, Iowa, to Austin, Texas in April for the Lone Star Roundup.
Oh, wow.
And it's about a 2,200 mile round trip with no top, no windows, no heat. God, we hope for good weather. But I call it the Cherokee Drive-a-thon. And it's kind of like when we were kids, you'd ride bikes for muscular dystrophy or whatever. You pledge so many cents a mile. And so it's another thing that it just kind of helps, defray some of the costs of going out and doing all these shows. But anything above what it cost me to get to the show goes to the charity.
That's great.
So there's 2 different ways of entering, and then on my drive-a-thon, you also get entered to win the car.
Right.
So it's just any way I can get the word out there.
You know, I entered the raffle, I got the poster, I was like, wow, this is, you know, you got nothing to lose. That you get the poster, you make a donation to a great cause, and you've got a chance at what could be a tremendous prize as a result of that. Well, we'll include plenty of information about your raffle at Vintage Torque Fest. And I've just got to say that, you know, I was impressed when I saw the build pics online and what the final result is. It's terrific. So, you know, this is something that could sell for big bucks on the open market, but somebody has a chance to win it by making a donation to a great cause.
Like I said, it's kind of a unique car. I've never seen one with the 36 Ford dash. It's very hard to make a T-bucket unique. You have to pick a build style and stick with it, otherwise you get lost along the way. You know, the biggest compliments I get is, what's the history on it? It looks old, it fits the part, we nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Doug, and we'll have all the information for listeners to be able to make their donations.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. I think Doug Siemen's story is a great one, and Doug Siemen's workmanship is just terrific on that T. So please do visit the Vintage Torque website to make your donation, get your poster, and your entry to win this fun Roadster that will be given away on May 4th at Vintage Torque Fest. Again, links will be in the show notes at tbucketpodcast.com. Also, please don't forget the helpful hot rod building plans and DVDs at our primary websites, tbucketplans.com, streetrodplans.com, and hotrodplans.com, all of which are linked in the show notes as well. Your interest and support at these sites really help us continue with this free podcast series. Our intro tune, My T-Bucket, also appears on the Fractals' Death by Fender album. And if you dig the sounds of the Ventures, Dick Dale, and the heavy guitar 60s surf rock, you can't go wrong with the whole album, which you can download at cdbaby.com. And we'll have links for that. Again, we don't make anything on this. I just love their music, and I'm so glad they granted permission to use My T-Bucket for our theme that I'm more than happy to help spread the word. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you won't miss any of our twice-weekly episodes. It's free and our way of spreading the word about the fun of T-Bucket hot rodding. I'm looking forward to getting together with you again in episode 4 of our Hooked on T-Bucket Hot Rods podcast, where you'll be treated to our interview with Danny Eichstead, who built the famous Leg Show T-Bucket that blew minds on the January 1971 cover of Rod and Custom that Pat Renall called the best rod magazine cover ever produced. Thanks.